In early October 2024, the city of Cleveland, Tennessee, became the center of a mystery that began as a missing persons report, and evolved into a haunting case of obsession, fear, and unanswered questions. A 24-year-old woman named Kada Scott finished her shift at work one Friday night, and never made it home. Days later, her car was found abandoned. Her phone, silent. Her life, suddenly gone without explanation. What followed was an investigation that exposed a chilling pattern of harassment and surveillance, and ultimately led police to one man. This is the story of the disappearance of Kada Scott. Friday, October 4th, 2024. It was an ordinary evening in Cleveland, a small city tucked in Bradley County, Tennessee, known for its quiet neighborhoods and close-knit community. At around 10 p.m., Kada clocked out from her job at a local business and left for home. Surveillance footage would later confirm that she made it to her car, a light-colored sedan parked near the employee lot. But somewhere between work and home, just a few miles apart, she vanished. That night, her family expected the usual check-in text she sent after every shift. But this time, no message came. Her phone went straight to voicemail. By morning, worry had already set in. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Kada had told friends and family about a man who had been calling her repeatedly, sometimes late at night, sometimes during work. According to police reports later shared publicly, she described the behavior as harassment. The calls were persistent. The messages, unwanted. That man was identified as 21-year-old Kean King. King was known to Kada through acquaintances. At one time, they'd been in occasional contact, but by September, she had reportedly stopped responding to him altogether. Even so, the messages continued. Investigators would later uncover that King had made dozens of phone calls to Kada in the final week before she disappeared. To those closest to her, the pattern was deeply unsettling. But no one imagined it would end this way. By Saturday, October 5th, Kada's mother had gone an entire day without hearing from her daughter. Calls went unanswered. Her social media activity, silent. That evening, she filed a missing persons report with the Cleveland Police Department. Officers began by retracing Kada's final steps. They spoke with co-workers, checked parking lot security footage, and contacted phone carriers to obtain location data. But by the end of that weekend, there was still no trace of her. Then came the first major clue. 2 days later, officers located Kada's vehicle. It was found parked along a quiet roadside, just a few miles from her apartment, locked, intact, and showing no signs of struggle. Her belongings were missing. Her phone too, was gone. Inside, investigators described the car as unusually clean. To detectives, that detail stood out immediately. When a missing persons case goes cold on the ground, detectives often turn to the digital world. Using a subpoena, investigators obtained access to Kada's phone and messaging records. The pattern was unmistakable. In the days before she vanished, Kean King had called her phone repeatedly. Between September 27th and October 4th, the data showed nearly 80 separate calls, many unanswered, others lasting only seconds. Detectives also noted that Kada's phone stopped transmitting data at approximately 10:23 p.m. on the night she disappeared. King's phone, meanwhile, registered in the same vicinity, within a mile of Kada's last known location. That overlap immediately drew investigators' attention. The two phones had been moving along similar routes. Then, both went dark. With mounting evidence, police brought Kean King in for questioning. According to official statements, he initially denied any involvement. He claimed he hadn't seen Kada in weeks and was unaware that she was missing. But investigators already knew his cell phone data placed him near her that night. As questioning continued, his story changed, small details shifting, timelines blurring. Without a body, though, police couldn't charge him immediately. They needed more, something physical, something undeniable. King was released, but surveillance teams quietly began monitoring his movements. It would take nearly 2 weeks before the case broke open. Detectives obtained surveillance footage from a business near the area where Kada's phone last pinged. At 10:25 p.m., a dark sedan appeared on the footage, headlights off, idling for several minutes. The vehicle was later confirmed to match Kian King's car. With that, investigators secured a search warrant for both his residence and vehicle. Inside, forensic teams found several pieces of potential evidence, fibers, debris, and other trace materials. Subsequent analysis by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation confirmed that some of the material was consistent with Kada's DNA. This discovery changed everything. On October 19, 2024, Cleveland police announced the arrest of 21-year-old Kian King. He was charged with first-degree kidnapping, interference with evidence, and false reporting. Police publicly stated that they believed Kada had been the victim of a targeted crime, one stemming from ongoing harassment and unwanted contact in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. At the time of the arrest, Kada was still missing. Authorities made it clear they were continuing to search for her body and any additional evidence that might lead to answers. Chief investigators credited the work of digital forensics teams, community tips, and careful coordination across multiple jurisdictions. Even with an arrest made, the most crucial piece of the case remained unsolved: finding Kada. Search teams, including local law enforcement, volunteers, and tracking units, combed wooded areas around Cleveland and Bradley County. Drone footage, heat imaging, and ground searches covered miles of terrain. But despite their efforts, no remains were found. Authorities have said publicly that while they now classify Kada's case as a likely homicide, the official status remains missing person under suspicious circumstances. For her family, that distinction matters, because until she's found, there's still hope. Court documents later revealed disturbing details uncovered by investigators. Among the findings, Kian King's search history included queries about how to hide a body in Tennessee. He had deleted entire message threads between himself and Kada shortly after her disappearance. The interior of his vehicle had been freshly cleaned within hours of her going missing. To prosecutors, the evidence painted a clear picture of intent and concealment. To the defense, it was circumstantial, a case built without a body. Still, investigators remained confident that they were closing in on the truth. As weeks turned into months, the city of Cleveland held on to Kada's memory. Vigils were organized by friends and local advocates, gathering in parks and church halls with candles and photographs, a community united in grief and uncertainty. Flyers bearing Kada's image were distributed across Tennessee and shared thousands of times online. The public response was immediate and heartfelt. People who had never met her attended vigils, wore ribbons, and followed every development in the case. For many, her disappearance symbolized something larger, a fear that such things could happen anywhere, to anyone. For Kada's family, life had become a cycle of waiting and searching. They continued to work closely with investigators, participating in search efforts and keeping her story in the public eye. Community organizations, including local women's advocacy groups, began using Kada's case to raise awareness about stalking and harassment, the warning signs that often precede violence. Police confirmed that Kada had indeed reported concerns about unwanted contact in the weeks before she went missing. In hindsight, those moments became painful reminders of what might have been prevented. The case against Kian King remains ongoing. As of late 2025, he is being held without bond, awaiting trial on charges related to Kada's disappearance. Prosecutors have indicated that additional charges could follow if new evidence emerges. Investigators continue to search in multiple counties, relying on new technology and tips from the public. Every few weeks, local news outlets still report on the case, small updates, brief mentions, each one a reminder that the story isn't over. Experts have pointed out that Kada's case reflects a troubling pattern seen across the country, where cases of stalking and intimate partner violence often escalate long before intervention occurs. According to data from the National Crime Victimization Survey, nearly 1 in 6 women in the United States experiences stalking in their lifetime, often by someone they know. And in many of those cases, the outcome is devastating. Kada's story became a focal point for discussions about victim safety, early reporting, and how law enforcement responds to repeated harassment before it turns deadly. Those who knew Kada describe her as compassionate, dependable, and kind-hearted, someone who found joy in the small things, who laughed often, and loved deeply. In her hometown, murals and memorials have been created to honor her memory. Her family has continued to advocate for stronger awareness around missing women's cases, especially in smaller communities where resources can be limited. For them, justice is not just about an arrest. It's about finding answers and bringing Kada home. The Disappearance of Kada Scott is a story that reminds us how quickly a life can change, and how a series of ignored warning signs can become irreversible tragedy. It is a case defined by absence, a missing person, a broken silence, a community left searching for peace. But through that silence, her story continues to speak, as both a warning and a call for change. Because behind every statistic is a voice that was once alive, once vibrant, and still deserves to be heard. This is the Disappearance of Kada Scott.